The outcasts of the Galaxy Commander. Elena Reyes stood at the observation deck of the United Earth Defense Force flagship Defiance, watching the stars shimmer against the void. 20 years of diplomatic missions had yielded the same results: rejection, fear, and isolation. The galactic powers called humans Deathworlders, creatures evolved from a hellish planet that normal species couldn't even visit without sophisticated environmental suits. Commander, incoming transmission from the Galactic. Council, Priority Alpha. Lieutenant Okafor's voice pulled her from her thoughts. Put it through, she ordered, straightening her uniform. The Council hadn't directly contacted Earth in over 3 standard years. The holographic display flickered to life, revealing High Consul Xyrix, a tall, willowy alien with translucent, blue skin and 6 limbs that moved with liquid grace. Despite the sophisticated translation systems, Elena could detect the tremor in his voice. Commander Reyes, I speak on behalf of the United Galactic Council. We require assistance of an urgent nature. Elena raised an eyebrow. The same council that denied our petition for membership 7 times, citing our inherently dangerous biological and cultural adaptations. The alien's skin pulsed with colors that the translation system identified as embarrassment and fear. Circumstances have changed. A threat has emerged from the uncharted sectors beyond the Perseus Arm. They destroy everything in their path, and our defensive systems are ineffective. And why is that? Elena asked, though she already suspected the answer. Our weapons are designed for peaceful resolution and containment. They cause no pain, no lasting damage. Xyrix's upper limbs twisted in distress. These invaders feel no pain. They do not negotiate. They do not stop. The irony wasn't lost on Elena. The Galactic Council had always prided itself on its evolved approach to conflict resolution. Neural disruptors, immobilization fields, and consciousness suppressors, all very advanced, all very humane, and apparently all very useless. Against this new threat, how many systems have been lost? She asked. 7. With 16 more projected to fall within the next solar cycle. Billions have already perished. Elena accessed the tactical display. And how close are they to Earth? They are not approaching your territory, Xyrix admitted. But they will eventually. Commander, we called your species warmongers. We feared the weapons you build, the ships you design like armored predators. We did not understand that in a galaxy of peaceful species, sometimes you need those who evolve to fight. Elena studied the alien's face. Decades of diplomatic service had taught her to read most sentient species, and she saw genuine desperation in those compound eyes. The Earth Defense Force stands ready, High Consul. But if we do this, if we fight your war, things will change. No more isolation. No more treating humans as dangerous primitives to be contained. We want full membership in the Council and all the rights that entails. Xyrix's skin flashed with relief. Agreed. Please. There is little time. After the transmission ended, Elena turned to her first officer. Contact Earth Command. Tell them to deploy the fleet. And, Lieutenant, it seems humanity is finally going to show the galaxy why evolution on a death world created the perfect guardians. Within 48 hours, the largest human battle fleet ever assembled jumped into hyperspace. 73 warships, their hulls covered in ablative armor plating that the Council species found unnecessarily robust, their weapon systems powerful enough to shatter small moons. Alongside them traveled Council observer vessels, their delicate designs a stark contrast to the utilitarian human ships. Senior diplomat Talos watched from his Council vessel as the human fleet emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the Nyx cluster, the next target in the invader's path. His species had evolved in the gentle cradle of low-gravity worlds with stable climates and few predators. Watching the humans prepare for battle was both terrifying and fascinating. Your vessels, he remarked to Elena over the communication link. They are built to sustain damage. We call it redundancy, Elena explained as crew members rushed through. Final battle preparations. Multiple backup systems, sectional bulkheads, armor thick enough to survive micrometeorite impacts. Earth taught us to prepare for the worst. We always built to avoid damage entirely, Talus admitted. Perfect shields, evasive systems, different evolutionary paths, different solutions, Elena replied. Now let's see what these invaders are made of. The enemy emerged from the darkness like a nightmare, a swarm of biomechanical constructs that moved with terrifying coordination. They ranged from fighters no larger than shuttles to massive hive ships that dwarfed even the Defiance. By the ID stars, Talus whispered as the sensor readings flooded in. They've incorporated technology from each civilization they've consumed. Those are Morellian drive signatures, Vorex weapon mounts. Elena studied the tactical display, noting how the swarm moved with both mechanical precision and organic adaptability. They learn, they consume, they evolve, she observed. No wonder your non-lethal weapons were ineffective. The first attack came without warning or communication. A wave of smaller craft surged toward the combined fleet. All ships, combat formation. Theta, Elena commanded. Weapon systems hot. Show them what happens when you corner a species that evolved as both predator and prey. As the alien swarm approached, expecting the same ineffectual defense they had encountered from other Council species, they met something entirely different. Human warships didn't retreat or attempt to disable. They advanced, their kinetic weapons, plasma cannons, and missile systems unleashing devastation. The first wave of attackers disintegrated under concentrated fire. The second wave adapted, developing thicker outer shells, but the human fleet simply switched tactics, deploying armor-piercing, munitions, and focused energy beams. They're learning, Lieutenant Okafor reported, adapting their defenses after each exchange. Elena nodded. That was expected. But adaptation takes time and energy. Keep shifting weapon configurations. Don't let them stabilize. On the Council, observer ship. Talus watched in astonishment as the human vessels absorbed impacts that would have destroyed his people's ships instantly. Instead of breaking formation or retreating, damaged human ships rotated to present undamaged armor while continuing to fire. Your crews, he said in wonder. They don't abandon their posts even when systems are failing around them. We train for this, Elena replied simply. Earth's gravity is punishing, its weather systems deadly, its wildlife evolved to kill. We learned to endure, to fight through pain, to never give up ground once taken. As the battle raged, the aliens began to grasp what made humans different from all other species they had encountered. These were creatures who had evolved on a world that tried to kill them daily, who had survived by becoming stronger, more resilient, more determined than anything that threatened them. For the first time since they emerged from the uncharted sectors, the swarm began to retreat. They're pulling back, Okafor reported, surprise evident in her voice. Elena's expression remained grim. This is just the beginning. They're reassessing, adapting, but now they know something they didn't before. What's that? Talus asked. That the galaxy has teeth after all, Elena said, watching the enemy regroup in the distance. And humanity is more than ready to bite, strength forged in Fire 3. Days after the initial engagement, the combined Human Council fleet established a defensive perimeter around the Nix cluster's populated worlds. The Defiance's Combat Information Center had become a hub of interspecies cooperation, with Council scientists and human military strategists working side by side. They're changing their approach, Tactical Officer Commander Jackson pointed out, gesturing to the holographic display where enemy movements were tracked. Breaking into smaller units, probing our defenses rather than committing to full assaults. They're learning, Elena agreed. Adapting to our tactics. Talus, who had transferred to the Defiance to serve as liaison, studied the display with newfound appreciation for human military thinking. What I don't understand is how they coordinate so perfectly without any detectable communications. Dr. Maya Chen, the fleet's xenobiologist, looked up from her analysis station. We believe they operate as a distributed neural network. Each unit contains a node of the collective intelligence. Like a hive mind? Talus asked. Similar, but more sophisticated, Dr. Chen explained. Our working theory is that they don't just share information, they share processing power. Each new unit they create expands their intelligence. The implications settled heavily over the room. Then we're not just fighting an enemy that adapts physically, Elena concluded. We're fighting one that gets smarter with every engagement. Commander Jackson nodded grimly. And if they've consumed 7 advanced civilizations already, then we need to hit them hard before they learn too much about us, Elena finished. She turned to the tactical display. What's the status of the evacuation? 23% complete, Talus reported. Our people move deliberately. They are not accustomed to rapid relocations. 3 billion council citizens inhabited. The Nix cluster, primarily Lorians and Ventari, species adapted to stable environments and orderly existence. The concept of emergency evacuation was foreign to their careful, measured societies. They need more time, Elena said, studying the enemy movements. And we're going to give it to them. Prepare Battle Plan Thunderhead. While the council observers watched with a mixture of awe and horror, human crews readied for a tactical offensive that would have been considered unconscionably aggressive by galactic standards. Instead of maintaining a defensive posture, the Earth fleet was going to strike first. Your species willingly initiates combat? Talus asked, his voice carrying notes the translator interpreted as disbelief. Elena smiled thinly. On Earth, there's an old saying, the best defense is a good offense. Sometimes, to protect what matters, you have to be willing to strike first. 2 hours later, the human fleet executed a coordinated hyperspace jump, emerging in the midst of the enemy's regrouping formation. What followed was controlled chaos as human warships engaged at point-blank range, their weapons configured to cause maximum disruption to the swarm's coordination. On the bridge of the Defiance, Elena watched the battle unfold, issuing commands, with the calm precision of someone who had trained their entire life for this moment. Squadron 2, concentrate fire on targets marked Alpha through Delta. Squadron 3, execute flanking maneuver and target their larger vessels. All ships, continue cycling weapon configurations according to protocol. The enemy responded with terrifying adaptability, their units morphing in real time to counter human attacks. What they hadn't expected, however, was that humans had evolved to thrive in chaos. They're trying to predict our patterns, Commander Jackson observed. But we're deliberately introducing randomness into our attack sequences. Dr. Chen nodded. Predictable systems are vulnerable systems. That's as true in biology as it is in warfare. As the battle progressed, something unexpected happened. The Council observer ships, which had initially maintained a safe distance, began moving closer to the conflict, their advanced sensor arrays gathering data that they transmitted directly to the human tactical systems. Target coordinates incoming. From Council vessels, Lieutenant Okafor reported with surprise. They're identifying structural weaknesses in the enemy units that our sensors can't detect. Elena exchanged glances with Talus. I thought your people were observers only. The alien's skin rippled with determination. We are learning from you, Commander. Perhaps it is time we contributed more than just words to our defense. The coordinated effort began to turn the tide. Human ships struck with devastating force precisely where Council sensors indicated the enemy was most vulnerable. For the first time, the swarm appeared to be caught off guard, unable to adapt quickly enough to the unexpected cooperation between species they had categorized separately. Yet victory came at a price. The human destroyer. Intrepid found itself surrounded after pushing too deep into enemy formation. Its distress calls crackled over the command channel. Intrepid to Fleet Command. We're sustaining heavy damage. Reactor containment at 60% and falling. Elena assessed the tactical situation instantly. All available ships, create an extraction corridor for the Intrepid. It's too late, Commander Jackson said quietly. Look. On the display, the Intrepid was nearly engulfed by enemy units that had latched onto its hull like parasites, their mechanical components boring through armor plating. Intrepid to command, the captain's voice was calm despite the chaos audible in the background. Request permission to initiate Protocol Omega. Elena closed her eyes briefly. Permission granted, Captain. Your sacrifice will not be forgotten. What happened next shocked the Council observers. Instead of attempting to escape or surrendering, the Intrepid diverted all remaining power to its engines and drove directly into the heart of the nearest enemy hive ship. The resulting explosion, as its reactor containment failed, destroyed not only the Intrepid but also a significant portion of the enemy command structure. Talos stared at the expanding debris field in stunned silence. They chose to die, he finally said, his voice barely audible. They chose to protect others, Elena corrected gently. There's a difference. The sacrifice of the Intrepid created a momentary disruption in the enemy's coordination, a window that the human fleet exploited with ruthless efficiency. Within hours, what had begun as a high-risk offensive had become a decisive victory. As the fleet regrouped, the cost became clear. 3 human vessels lost, 17 more damaged but repairable. Against any other adversary, such losses would have been unacceptable. Against this enemy, it was nothing short of miraculous. In the aftermath, Elena found Talos on the observation deck, watching as repair drones swarmed around damaged human ships. Your crew on the Intrepid, he said without preamble. 342 individuals. They knew they would die. They knew it was a possibility from the moment they enlisted, Elena answered. Just as they knew that sometimes survival has a price. My people would never understand such sacrifice, Talos admitted. We value life above all else. So do we, Elena said. But sometimes protecting life means being willing to risk your own. As they stood in silence watching the stars, a new understanding began to form between species that had evolved along vastly different paths. The Council had always seen humanity's capacity for violence as a liability. Now, they were beginning to see it as exactly what the galaxy needed, guardians willing to stand against the darkness. We should prepare, Elena finally said. This was just one battle. The enemy will adapt, learn from their defeat. And when they return, Talos asked. We'll be ready, Elena promised, because that's what humans do. We adapt, we overcome, and we never, ever give up. Guardians of the Stars 1 week after the Battle of Nyx, the enemy returned. Not as a disorganized swarm seeking to regroup, but as a unified force that had clearly analyzed and adapted to human tactics. Their new formation was a densely packed sphere with smaller units forming a defensive shell around what appeared to be a central command structure. They've learned from their mistake, Commander Jackson observed grimly as the tactical display updated with sensor data. No more distributed command nodes. They've centralized control. Elena studied the approaching formation. Evacuation status? 78% complete, Talos reported. But we still have over 600 million civilians in the cluster. And they know it, Dr. Chen added, pointing to the enemy's trajectory. They're heading directly for the most populated worlds, not the strategic targets, not our fleet. They're targeting civilians. The observation deck fell silent as the implications became clear. The enemy wasn't just adapting tactically, it was adapting strategically, targeting what it had identified as humanity's weakness, their protective instinct toward others. They think we'll spread ourselves thin to protect population. Centers, Elena said finally. And they're right. We would. That's exactly what we'd do. Talus's skin rippled with distress. Then what can we do? If we concentrate our forces, worlds will fall. If we divide to protect everyone, we lose everything, Elena finished. She turned to the assembled command staff. We need a new approach, something they haven't seen from us yet. For the next 6 hours, human military strategists worked alongside Council scientists, combining human tactical experience with the Council's advanced theoretical modeling. What emerged was unprecedented. A battle plan that incorporated both human aggressiveness and Council technological ingenuity. Operation Lighthouse is a go, Elena announced as the fleet moved into position. All ships, prepare for Phase 1 deployment. The human fleet split into 3 task forces. The largest, under Elena's direct command, moved to engage the enemy's main force directly, a classic human frontal assault that the enemy would expect. The second, smaller group slipped away under the cover of Council stealth technology, positioning themselves near the populated worlds to intercept any enemy units that broke through. The third group, consisting of just 5 vessels, disappeared entirely. As the main human fleet engaged the enemy sphere, something remarkable happened. Council ships, which had primarily served in support and observation roles, moved into formation alongside human warships. Their advanced shields complemented human armor, creating layered defenses that the enemy struggled to penetrate. They're adapting again, Commander Jackson reported as the battle intensified. Focusing fire on Council vessels first, then hitting our ships once the shields are down. They've identified our cooperation as a threat, Elena noted. Good. That means it's working. The combined fleet fought with unprecedented coordination, each species leveraging their evolutionary advantages. Human ships absorbed punishment that would have destroyed Council vessels instantly, while Council technology provided targeting solutions of pinpoint accuracy that human sensors couldn't match. Yet the enemy's central command structure remained, protected behind layers of defensive units that sacrificed themselves to maintain the sphere's integrity. "Where's Task Force 3? Talus asked as the casualties mounted on both sides. "The enemy command ship remains untouched." Elena checked her tactical display. "Right where they need to be. Executing Phase 2 now." At that moment, deep within the enemy formation, 5 human vessels suddenly appeared. Not through conventional space, but through an experimental Council phase shift technology that had been integrated into their systems. They materialized directly adjacent to the enemy command structure, their weapons already firing. "Task Force 3 reports successful insertion," Lieutenant Okafor announced. "Commencing attack on Central Node." The enemy reacted with frantic reorganization, pulling defensive units inward to protect their command ship, exactly as planned. With their formation disrupted, the main human fleet pushed forward, breaking through weakened sections of the sphere. "All ships, press the advantage," Elena ordered. "Don't let them reestablish cohesion." On her private channel, a transmission came through from Captain Reeves of the Vanguard, Task Force 3's lead ship. "Commander, we've breached their outer defenses, but they're adapting quickly. The phase shift damaged our propulsion systems. We can't extract." Elena's expression remained impassive, despite the cold weight settling in her chest. "Understood. Captain, complete your mission." "With pleasure, Commander." There was no fear in Reeves's voice, only determination. "It's been an honor." The Vanguard and its companion ships, stranded within the heart of the enemy formation, executed their final orders. Rather than attempting escape, they directed all remaining power to their weapons, targeting the enemy's central command node with everything they had. The resulting chain reaction tore through the enemy command structure like a supernova, rippling outward as secondary explosions consumed ship after ship. Task Force 3 vanished in the conflagration, but they took the enemy's central intelligence with them. Without their command node, the remaining enemy vessels fell into disarray. Some continued fighting with programmed responses, Others drifted aimlessly, and still others attempted to retreat. The combined fleet methodically eliminated all of them. 3 days later, representatives from across the Galactic Council gathered aboard the Defiance for a formal recognition ceremony. High Consul Xyrix himself presented commendations to the human commanders and, most significantly, to the families of those who had been lost. For generations, Xyrix addressed the assembled crews, we viewed humanity's evolutionary path with fear. We saw a species shaped by a hostile world, carrying adaptations for aggression and warfare, and we kept you at arm's length. The vast chamber was silent as the High Consul continued. We failed to understand a fundamental truth, that the same forces that made you capable of violence also made you uniquely suited to stand against threats that peaceful species could not face alone. You are not just Deathworlders. You are guardians, shaped by adversity to protect those who cannot protect themselves. Elena accepted the formal Treaty of Alliance on behalf of Earth. The document granted humanity full membership in the Council and recognized Earth's Defense Force as the primary protective service for all Council species. Later, on the observation deck where it had all begun, Elena found Talus watching the stars once more. Your people have changed us, he said without turning, not just politically or militarily. You've changed how we see the universe. How so? Elena asked, joining him at the viewport. We evolved in gentle worlds, believing the universe was fundamentally benevolent. That peace was the natural state of existence. Talus's skin rippled, with colors that the translator couldn't quite capture. You knew better. You came from a world that taught you to prepare for the worst while hoping for the best. Elena smiled. There's an old Earth saying, hard times create strong people. And those strong people protected us when we could not protect ourselves, Talus finished. My species will never evolve your physical capabilities or your instinct for warfare. But perhaps we can learn from your courage, your willingness to sacrifice for others. As they stood together, watching Council and human ships in joint formation, a new chapter was beginning. One where the Deathworlders had found their place in the galaxy, not as outcasts or dangers to be contained, but as guardians of a peace they had fought so hard to preserve. What happens now? Talus asked. Elena looked out at the stars, stars that now represented not isolation, but connection. Now we do what humans have always done. We adapt, we build, and we protect what matters. The galaxy would never again underestimate the value of having evolved on a world that tried to kill you. Sometimes, the harshest crucible forges the strongest shields. Sometimes the Deathworlders make the best guardians.